So, welcome to this PAX East, what would you call it? PAX East wrap-up. I know it's a little bit late getting out, but, I was pretty tired after traveling, and, I wanted to kind of really soak in every little, bit of what I remember and what I did. The show itself was great. There was a lot of games there, some returning, like Baldur's Gate 3 was at the last show in 2020, I believe it was, or yeah, 2020. But there was also a lot of new stuff, and some of the bigger companies like THQ and PlayStation had been there for a few years at this point. But there's a lot of other companies that take their place, and I think that those companies that did kind of get a bigger set, well, it was really, really well done. One of my favorite places was the Tinykin area, which was like this carnival, which was similar to 2020's PAX, of course, but it was filled with even more games to play. Thunderful had a nice big thing. And then, of course, Intel had like an entire section, which was just like showing off their new stuff. You could play like Elden Ring and Dying Light 2 on like maxed out settings, and like your eyes would pop out of your skull because the graphics look so good. And just like any other PAX, I mean, there's a large tabletop area, board game area, card game area. There was areas that you could bring your own setup, your own PC, your own consoles, and play with other people. Areas where you can just play Dungeons and Dragons. Lots of cool stuff like that, as per usual. And then also the other big company that was there was Focus Home Entertainment, and they brought two big games, which I'll talk about later on. But let's talk about what game that I played first. That's my new. Okay, so that's my new. That's my new new alert. I'm gonna mute that for right now. Vibrate. There we go. Okay. I got a new phone, the Google Pixel 6. Loving it so far. I made it Kazooie themed instead of Banjo themed, so there might be a few different noises happening in the background. Anyway, the first game that we played, which was the longest game that we had to wait for, I'm pretty sure the wait time clocked in at over 2 hours. And that was Cult of the Lamb. At that point, by the time you get up there, you've played the game so many times, or seen the game played so many times. It's kind of like, walking through the motions. But the game still felt really good, and I mean, I love the graphics in the game. It's got this cutesy style, while also being kind of satanic, too. But yeah, the demo was like 15-ish minutes long, maybe a little bit more. And there was a good amount of people in front of us. But when we got into the line, I was like, this is probably going to be the closest that we're going to be able to get to this thing. And that was true. It was so true, because through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that line was always long. And it kind of is annoying a little bit that they only had one setup for the game. I mean, I think this was like their big blockbuster game that everyone was waiting for. I mean, the setup was crazy. There was like all this like markings, and they had all the characters kind of lined up at the top in like this cult mode, and they had like the whole thing was so cool. The other games in the area had like these little arcade cabinet setups, but they really went all out for Cult of the Lamb. After you were done with the demo, you got this free Cult of the Lamb hat, a little, not really, it's not like a hat like Fuser a couple years ago, but it was a little cutesy hat that you would put on your head. Besides the point, the game played really great. Obviously it's roguelike, so the demo had you go through the tutorial, and then you kind of went through the basics of building your community. So the part of the game is roguelite, and the other the other half of the game is building this cult. So they had you get one cult member, and you gave them a task to do, and then you also built your first structure, which was like an area to make food for your friends, your cult members. And then they gave you a whole dungeon to go through. And I feel like, I don't want to say like, I was, I was given a lesser experience, but the route that we took on the dungeon, I feel like I had way less options than what everyone else had. I remember, like, I found the deck guy who gives you a card that boosts something while you're going through the game. But there were some people who had like these side rooms, lots of chests and stuff like that, and I just didn't. I mean, the dungeons are random, so it's like, okay, well, fuck me. And maybe I did miss it. Maybe I did miss it. I don't know. But it was a fun game. It was kind of, I mean, it was worth the wait, but I wish I hadn't seen it so much over and over and over again before playing it, because I kind of knew what was going to happen. The one thing that you didn't know was, what special abilities you were gonna get. There was one where like sword or tentacles came out of the ground and like slapped around. There was like a sword that could do like bleed damage when you hit a character, or poison. There's a whole slew of weapons that you could find and use, and that's the whole roguelike element to the game right there. And obviously we didn't get to see too much, but like I said, the graphics in the game is a real big selling point. It looks great. It's like a cute and cuddly adventure, but it's all demonic, and it was just had great music, great sound effects. Was a really fun time. Yes, we waited a little bit too long in line for it. I saw both of the people who I was meeting up at the convention while I was in that line. And then also while I was waiting in line, Shirley Curry, the Skyrim grandma, walked by, and I couldn't get a picture with her because I was in line. So, it's sad news. But yeah, that being said, it was totally worth it. Totally worth it. Moving on. Yes, I met up with a retro fellow while I was there. We had a fun time hanging out. I will talk more about our adventures in Fubar Ferret when fellow is feeling better. So there you go. Discord also had a pretty big setup. You could get their merch. I believe there was a way to get I got free nitro from scanning my badge, which, I already have nitro for a year, so maybe I'll give that away. So the second game that we played was called The Last O Raichu. Nomad Eric was there too. I met up with Nomad Eric. I got a picture with him, but I guess it's out of order. And he really liked this game with his friend. That's fine. That's great. This game is like a co-op Souls-like almost. But it was weird because some enemies didn't respawn while all the others did every single time. But it's got like this fantasy sci-fi kind of look to it. Like there's some weapons that are kind of like, oh, that's kind of like sci-fi inspired. And then there's some weapons that are like, oh, that's crazily fantasy inspired, It's kind of like a mixture of the two, I guess. But I wasn't a huge fan of the game. There was this guy while you go through the game, you're given like this task to find this lost soldier. And I kid you not, his name was Doofus. Okay, and you were supposed to go find Doofus. And I found dead bodies all around that had Doofus's armor, Doofus's leggings, Doofus's helmet, Doofus's, armaments or whatever they're called. I found his entire armor set, and I'm like, did I find Doofus now? And the lady was like, go find Doofus. I'm like, who the fuck is this Doofus guy? We ended up not finishing the demo because we got stuck with that. Is it a game that I would play maybe on a sale? I wasn't a huge fan of it. I mean, I guess you could play the game solo if you wanted to. There was also a ton of dialogue in the game too. Like the opening part of the game was just like dialogue after dialogue. And personally, I'll say this, if you're putting a demo into a convention like this, you want to make sure that it's featuring the gameplay and stuff like that. I mean, dialogue's fine, but I'll talk about a game later that I thought had a great mix of the two. But this one there was just parts where you're just like listening to this guy ramble on, talk, and I was like, holy shit, just let me get to the gameplay. So I ended up skipping a lot of dialogue. And even then, we didn't wait it long at all for the game. And I think it's because a lot of people were giving up kind of halfway when they didn't know what to do. For a Souls game, it wasn't really too difficult. I mean, obviously there were some tougher enemies in there that you would die to, but it was pretty generous with where you spawned, and I don't think you even lost much of anything when you died. So, if you want to check this one out, The Last O Raichu, it was, I don't know, it kind of reminded me of Lords of the Fallen a little bit. It was a little bit slow, but what are you gonna do? So anyway, that was The Last O Raichu. The next game that I played was called Tinykin, and cool story, I actually won a free copy of the game because I posted this picture, a picture of me standing next to the main character of the game, and I posted it on Twitter. And there were 10 people who won a free copy of the game when it releases. I don't know when it comes out, but I was sold on the game. A fellow and I played it, and he played the first part, and then I picked it up after that. I seem to have more fun with it, but essentially it's like a Pikmin platformer. There's a large emphasis on platforming, but there's also an emphasis on taking these little dudes, which I kind of call dust mites, but they're not really dust mites. But these little round dudes with a single eyeball and a mouth, and they all had different things to them. So there were bomb versions, there were carrier versions. In the picture that I'm showing on the screen for the video portion of this episode, there are dust mites who can fly. They have electricity. They have like one of them's like they can carry things. Like I said, there was one that has like a diamond in his hands. I'm not sure. We finished the demo. It was a fun little demo, a little puzzle platforming in there, a little puzzle Pikmining in there. I don't know exactly what you would call a Pikmin game. But yeah, like I was talking to a guy in line, and he's like, this game is very, he was like, oh wow, it looks just like a modern Pikmin or something. And I was like, if Nintendo's not going to do it, then the indie scene is going to pick things up. And, just like with Hollow Knight and how Metroidvanias weren't being pumped out by Nintendo, well, now because Nintendo isn't pumping out a new Pikmin game, they decide, this indie team decided to kind of make their own spin on it. And it's a pretty cool feeling game. There's like a soap bar it's like a skateboard or a hoverboard, actually, where you just slide around on the map. Obviously, you don't have like combat skills per se, but you can use your dudes to scathe off enemies. I don't even think there was really enemies in the area that they kind of gave you. So I'm wondering if later on there's like an enemy or something. I don't know. But yeah, it was a fun time. Like I said, I won a free copy of the game, so I'm definitely going to be checking it out when it comes out. Yeah, it's a cutesy game. It seems like it's going to be kind of fun. It kind of has that same story too as the original Pikmin, where you got to go around and collect different items to build like I think it was like a teleporter or something like that. So, but there's no time constraints or anything like that, which is something that you might not like from the original Pikmin. So yeah, excited to see that game when it comes out. It was a fun time playing that, and that was Tinykin. And then if we move on, I also played a game. Well, you should know about this game. KO the Kangaroo, not Cow, KO. KO the Kangaroo had a demo there, which was surprising to me because I think they announced that they were going to be there like a day or two before we were leaving to go to the convention. So it was kind of cool that they were able to swing by. I think limited run games lent them some space, which is why they were able to get in. So, hats off to limited run games. I actually bought 2 games from limited run this time around. The Metal Slug Anthology, which I swear to God was a Wii exclusive, which was ported to the PS4, I suppose. I never knew that. And then also I got Scott Pilgrim vs. the World on Switch because that's a limited game for sure. Anyway, besides the point, I played KO the Kangaroo. It's a 3D platformer where you play as a kangaroo who punches things, obviously. There's different power-ups you can get, like you can power up your gloves with fire, you can use boomerangs to knock things down. It seems to be a better and more concise Ty the Tasmanian Tiger. That's what I was kind of saying. Like, it's Australian and it's a platformer, but it seems like they really nailed the combat and the platforming. It was a very fun playthrough. Because the level that you played was farther in the game than I think the devs realized, there was a specific move that I needed to do, which, in hindsight probably was pretty obvious. You had to do a ground slam, but I was trying every single combination of A and another button, and I guess I never tried to do A, and I think it was A and B, which seemed like, thinking about it now, it's like, oh, duh, I should have known to do that, But, in the moment, you're kind of just playing it, and it's like, oh, okay. I guess I should have thought of that. But that's besides the point. It was a very fun platformer. Had some puzzles in there. Had a lot of secret rooms to go into, which was my forte. and I had a lot of fun playing it, and of course got to the end of it, and they only had one magnet left for the game to promote the game. After it was only a day after they must not have thought about how many people were actually going to play the demo. That's besides the point. One more magnet. I got the last magnet. I was very happy. They might have had an extra one or two lying around, but yeah, I was very happy about that. So yeah, KO the Kangaroo, very fun. And then that night we went to go see the, what was it called, the Verdetti string quartet, and they do, it's two violins, a viola, and a cello, and they do these quartet versions of songs. So they did like the Green Hill Zone from Sonic. They did the Assassin's Creed theme. Very cool stuff. Very cool stuff. Fellow actually left during the Sonic theme, which was the one thing that he was really looking forward to. But duty calls. But I'll talk about these types of things on Fubar Ferret. Okay. Yeah, like I said, I bet Nomad while I was there. I don't know who this person is in the background of the photo. They kind of photobombed a little bit. Not sure why, but whatever. Okay, so day 2. We got there, and the first thing that we played was called The Last Hero of Nostalgia. And I think this is one of my favorite games that was at the show. It is a Souls-like, where you play as this like stick figure with no head. It's just kind of like a bunch of lines. And essentially you are trying to you're trying to like rebuild this video game. Essentially, you got a narrator who, I think it's the same guy from the Stanley Parable. I know I've said that a few times, but he sounded very similar. And essentially, this game, it's a Souls-like. You got a bunch of classes, and there was all this like funny stuff. Like they were like, "Oh, what's your gender? What's this? What's this? What's this?" It all didn't matter because when you loaded into the game, your file got corrupted, and of course, you become this stick figure. And what you do is you go through this like first area, which is kind of like a destroyed library, and you go around, fighting these guys who are like paper thin, not fully rendered enemies. And then the final boss, you fight the boss of the area, and he has to load in, and he has like a second phase, which is pretty cool. And once you beat him, the area becomes less digitized, and it becomes more like crisp graphically. It was really cool, and I thought that for an indie Souls-like from Thunderful Games, it felt pretty good. The combat was nice. There's a bunch of different weapons and classes that you could have used in the demo. I mostly stuck to like a sword and a shield, and then you also, there was a healing items and stuff like that. There seemed to be like, I think they were called digital clusters. I'm pretty sure that's like a way to gain extra souls, kind of like the Lost Hero souls from any of the Soulsborne games. So yeah, it was a fun time. I'm definitely checking that out when it comes out. It seems like it's going to be one of those Souls-like games that is good for like a starter, kind of like a beginner Souls player, because it seems to be more focused on the narrative of the whole thing instead of being focused on like how challenging can we make this game. You know what I'm saying? So it was a very fun playthrough. Enjoyed that a lot. And of course, you could take your picture with the stick figure dude. I decided to be funny and use the sword as a hat and the helmet as a weapon. I don't know how funny that was. We also played 2 other games at the Thunderful Booth. My fiance Amanda played Paper Cut Mansion. I don't think she's going to come in here and talk about the game, but she said it was fun. I believe it's a roguelike where you go through, of course, a mansion. Everything kind of looks paperish, I didn't play it myself, so I don't have thoughts on it. But one game that we did play was called Hell Pie, and this was a fun 3D platformer where you played as this like little demon dude who had an angel chained to him. And essentially he uses that angel to fight and do platforming stuff. So one of the moves that they introduced to you is you could have the angel stay in place, and then you could swing on it like a grapple hook, right? Then there were also like the first whole level, like I think it was like a training area, honestly. All the enemies were like these Nazi feces. So like it was poop characters who were Nazis. It was pretty funny. It's a very grotesque game, obviously. And then they also let you free roam in the hub area for like 10 minutes, and there was things to do around there, things to find, platforming challenges to do. It reminded me a little bit of Demon Turf, which is a game I talked about a few episodes ago. And yeah, it was a fun platformer, had some nice combat. There was a fun boss fight in the middle there. And the hub world seems like it's going to be a pretty nice area to kind of explore. Excited to see that one when it comes out. And then the other game that we played, or the last game actually, no, it wasn't the last game. The last game for today at Thunderful, we played Source of Madness, which was this 2D Metroidvania where it was kind of like Cthulhu type characters. From what I remember from a video that I watched from Iron Pineapple, he said that the enemies in the game were randomly generated, which can make for some interesting enemy variations. And I could definitely tell that that was true because every enemy was unique. There was no similar enemy. It was a little bit difficult finding your way through after a little while. The graphics were nice though, and it seems like there's a really cool combat system in there. I didn't play too much of it, but it felt pretty good. And I think it's an early access right now. So if you want to try it out, I mean, it's an early access, and I think they were planning on fully releasing the game this year. So I might try that out once the full version is done. But yeah, had a good time with that. Can't complain. Hellpie was definitely better than Source of Madness, but I mean, nothing beats that hero nostalgia game that I played. That was pretty cool. Anyway, let's move on. The next game we played was called Super Marxist Twins. Now, you might realize that the game is very similar to Super Mario Brothers. The character designs of the main characters do look like a Soviet Mario and Luigi. But that's kind of where the similarities end. It's a 2D platformer. Well, I guess that's not where the similarities end. It's a 2D platformer, and you can use, if you have two people, you can play with both people at the same time, so you can have them, which is not similar to a regular Mario game. Well, I guess maybe I'm fucking up now. Doesn't matter. So one character can use the sickle, and one character can use the hammer. Hammers break bricks, and the sickle cuts through like wheat or whatever, bundles of hay. And the characters, like the enemies inside the game, like they have like guns and weapons, so it's not just like Goombas or Koopa Troopas walking around. It was a fun little playthrough. I mean, you got to play like a 5-10 minute demo, which is perfect amount of time. They had 3 different setups, and the coolest thing was at the end of it all, they were doing like this T-shirt and game bundle for $13, and the T-shirt was $10, and the game was like $10. So it was a really good deal. I decided to buy it myself. Haven't played it yet. At home, but really interesting concept, I guess. Didn't play too much of it, of course, but it's one of those games that's it's a 2D platformer, can get a little bit difficult, but it was pretty fun. I like the music, and I thought that it was a very charming looking game. It has like that old school 2D side scroller aesthetic while having modern like physics and stuff like that. So yes, let's move on. Next game was World War I is Sanso, which is from the same developers as World War I Verdun. This is pretty much just a new map along with the new game. The only real difference between this game and their last game from the series is the graphics just look 100% better. They do look a lot better. Gameplay wise, it does feel very similar. It's a limited HUD kind of team. Obviously, it's I think it's Italian forces versus I can't remember. But you pretty much fight, and the demo was pretty much just going up against bots, so it wasn't like anything too crazy. But essentially, the map, as one team pushes in or the other team pushes in to the enemy's territory, the map drastically changes. So you go from fighting over this like broken city to fighting on a hillside, and if you get pushed back even more, you're fighting on top of the hill, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can use. It's all bolt action rifles, which is the way that it should be. Bolt action rifles and pistols. There's a few mounted machine guns you could build. I think that was a new mechanic, was being able to build as like the engineer. You could build defenses and stuff like that. Kind of similar to Battlefield 5. And Yeah, it was good. You know, I think that it was good. I'll definitely be checking it out when it finally launches. But I had a good time playing it. They were giving out these postcards for playing the game, and they were kind of fun. You know. Yeah, nothing else to really say. I bet this is gonna be a pretty fun, game to play with your friends. Squad up with a team of people and play. But you can also play it solo because unlike some other games that I've talked about in the past, when you die, you have like a 10-second spawn timer, or I don't remember how long it was, and you just kind of get back into the action. You just spawn back in. So it was a pretty fun. I tried every single class from sniper to commander. Obviously it was just fun all around. So not too much to complain about. So yeah, there you go. World War One is Sanso. Like I said, Shirley Curly was there. Curry, not Curly. Shirley Curry was there, who is a Skyrim grandma. She plays Skyrim and other games, of course. I think I'll talk about this a little bit more on Fubar Ferret, but it was nice to listen to her talk. And the room was packed. I mean, we were so far away. The room was packed. Lots of people there. She opened the floor to questions, and that's when things kind of went a little bit sour because during her little talk, she was talking about how much she wanted to play a creepy game, right? And I was vibing with the people's questions for a little while, but suddenly it more so turned into, here's what games you should play, here's what game you should play, here's what game you play. So one of the first times that I kind of cringed a little bit, someone requested that she play Phasmophobia, and it's like, okay, in general, not a bad recommendation, I suppose. And then this one guy up front was like, please, no, don't play that. And this girl across the room was like, let her play what she wants. And then everyone started clapping. That was a little cringe moment there. And then the final cringe moment that I remember, it was a little bit before we left. We left a little bit after this question, but this person went up to the microphone and they were like, you should play Bloodborne. And I'm like, I don't know if that's a good recommendation for her. To all the recommendations, she just said, get out, write it down on a piece of paper and give it to me, and I'll think about it. So a lot of people were scrambling to try and get like a pencil and paper, to write the thing down when they did the meet and greet with her. But I just feel like Bloodborne, she's going like, you do know that she's like, I don't know, 80 years old. Like, I don't know if Bloodborne is a good match for her. I mean, don't let me gatekeep. I mean, she could try it if she wants it, but I think Phasmophobia would be more, an older person's speed, because you don't need to have the quick reaction, stuff like that. It's more of like an investigation. But going back to her talk, I mean, she talked about how she had a stroke. She had to relearn how to play Skyrim. She talked about her videos and how they started to kind of pop off. She talked about how each time she plays Skyrim, she's trying to be a different character. It was just a fun time, and I enjoyed it. So that's all that matters. And then we played a game called Rhythm Sprout, which was a pretty fun rhythm game. It kind of reminded me of Rock Band Blitz. And if you don't know what Rock Band Blitz is, it was a game that you could play with a controller, and you would press either, A, B, Y, A. Wait, I already said A. You would press one of the command buttons, A, B, X, Y, for one side of the screen, or one track. And you would press the D-pad for the other track. So you had two dueling tracks. And it was very similar to this, where you had two sets of moves. So you had your D-pad and your buttons, your labeled buttons. And then you also had a dodge button, which was like RB or LB. So essentially you kind of played along to the beat. You tried to get the best score possible. It was very fun. I'm definitely going to pick this up when it comes out. It was just fun, and they had like these really cool songs. They had 4 different setups for this game, and I think 2 of them had different levels to play. So the one was like a more heavier metal type track, and then the one that I played, unfortunately, was a more like poppy, hip hoppy track. They weren't licensed music or songs. It was actually music that they made for the game, which also adds a little bit of charm to it. I don't really have anything else to say about it. It was just a really fun time. I believe the demo for this game and Tinykin and the game I'm going to talk about after this are all available on Steam. So if you want to check those out, you can. Which, speaking of the next game, Justice Sucks, which is a tactical vacuum action game. This is kind of like a parody of Metal Gear Solid, except you're playing as this little Roomba. And essentially what you need to do is you use the environment to attack and kill enemies. So there's these guards walking around, and there's like bombs that you need to defuse. And like, let's say one of the guards is walking past the DJ set. If you activate the DJ set, it will send out an electric pulse that'll stun him, knock him down, possibly kill him. There were also other instances where you could blast them with a speaker, and they could fall into a pit of people dancing and get trampled and die. There were doors you could open and close. Obviously, there were the bombs you needed to defuse. There was just a bunch of stuff like that. It was a very fun game. It was kind of difficult at times. We played one of the harder levels, and the only reason why I chose to play it was because it had the word turtle in the name, the Turtle Dance Club. It was a pretty tough level, but you could wear a turtle on your Roomba, so that was a plus, a major plus. Also, they had like a Roomba that was dressed up like the Roomba in the game, in a cage, kind of going back and forth. You know, I called it Roomba abuse, but, you know, seeing as how this Roomba was destroying or, you know, doing tactical espionage, maybe he needs to be locked up in a cage. I don't know. There's one other game we played from this studio, but I'll talk about that much later because it's one of the last games we played on Sunday. But this was a very fun game. Really enjoyed it. Found it very enjoyable. And I believe also this one has a Steam demo, so if you want to check it out, you can. Very fun. Okay, so we played a Lego game that was there. I kind of forget what it was called. Lego Builders or something like that. It wasn't that great. I wasn't having that great of a time with it. I think it would be more fun if we had started from the beginning of the demo, but, you know, someone left their controller and you couldn't restart the game for some reason. Essentially what you do is you take pieces of Lego, you stack them in different ways to try and overcome obstacles. It's a little bit different than that Lego Builder's Journey, which is like a phone game that was ported to console recently. It's a little bit different than that, where you don't have set places to... I mean, you do have set places to place things, but it's a little bit more free on this one. You know, like I said, it wasn't like too crazy fun, but if you like puzzle builders, you know, you might enjoy that. There was a game called Match Point that we played. Very fun. Very basic, though. I looked it up on Steam after the convention, and there were a lot of people saying how they didn't like that there was no online aspect to the game. But I don't think that I was talking with the developers while I was there. Didn't seem like they really cared too much about online. It's all about, you know, the local party type of thing. And, you know, just playing a few matches of the game, you know, like, you really got into it, you know? I believe Fellow won a free copy of the game. And I think he won a free copy because he was so animated when he was playing the game. But you really do feel that. Like, it's a game. Okay, so let me describe the game. It's like Pong, except you can move anywhere you want on the board. And you have to hit the enemy's goal, I'll say, twice. Once to break their shield, another time to get a goal. And the other thing about the game is you can grab onto the ball with like a tether, and then you can also kick the ball with a force field. And those things combined caused this was a very chaotic kind of game. It was very fun, though. It was very fun. It was just like one of those games that, you know, it's a very basic concept and the graphics are very basic, but it proves that you don't need the greatest graphics ever or the most crazy in-depth game ever to just have a fun experience. And I can definitely see, like, let's say you're at a friend's house, you pull up this game, you got, you know, 4v4, 6v6, not 6v6, 3v3. I can see this getting very chaotic very quickly. And it was just a fun game. So, you know, Match Point, very, very interesting. All right, day 3 and the final day there, we played Scathe first, which is it's kind of like a Doom-inspired game where you play as a character who has a unlimited ammo gun, which is pretty nice. So you start off with an assault rifle, which is the unlimited ammo one. But once you get the shotgun, that does require you to pick up ammo. But yeah, the shotgun's super powerful. I believe there's also a few other guns you could get during your run. But of course, I wasn't very good at the game. But I mean, I managed to get to the end of it, the demo, so that's not too bad. But Like I said, it's very Doom-esque, so it's a very fast running first person shooter. There was like some special abilities you could get in there, and aesthetically wise, you're fighting like demons and stuff like that. So, very Doom inspired. But it was fun though. It was a fun, fast paced shooter. And if you're looking at the screen, if you're watching the video version of this, the time to beat was 3 minutes 15 seconds 40 milliseconds, which was the best run of the demo. And I guess the one thing I should also mention is the demo had multiple endings and multiple ways you could go, and I think that's what they're doing for the main game. Is you can go like there's a very open and maze like area, and there's multiple ways to get out of the area and fight a boss or get a new weapon or get a new power up, stuff like that. So that's what kind of makes it separate from Doom, where Doom is a very linear experience. Scathe seems to be a very open and kind of do it your own way experience, which is cool. Directly after that, we played this developer's other game, which was called Die by the Blade. I didn't understand what I was doing. Obviously, there was a kind of like a For Honor fighting system in there where you had your high attacks, your mid attacks, and your low attacks, and you had to block in those similar ways. I had no clue what I was doing. I was fighting a guy who also didn't know what he was doing, but I ended up getting beaten 3 times in a row. So, I wasn't like a super big fan of it. Obviously, it's in, the demo was kind of rough. But I wasn't a huge fan of it. Yeah, I was like, okay, we'll play it to get the pin, but I don't know if I'm going to add it to my wish list or anything like that. It was not that great. It was like how do I describe it? It was like a sci-fi Mortal Kombat type experience. You had like a 3D environment to fight in, and the characters were really they were souped up with like energy weapons and stuff like that. Like I said, I didn't understand the combat at all. There was no like tutorial or how to play type thing going on. So I just you're kind of like thrown into the wolves. But yeah, I mean, obviously there's people who are gonna enjoy this game, and maybe I will in the future. But right now, not a big priority on my list. After that, we went back to Devolver Digital, thinking that everything was gonna have a shorter line. It did not, but we waited for a game called Demon Throttle, and there was also only one setup for this game. And essentially, this is like it's a top-down scroller, and it kind of is reminiscent of like a Game Boy era game. And you just kind of scroll, you walk upwards, and you have 2 different characters you can use. One's a cowboy with a triple shot revolver, and the other one is a demon woman who has a crossbow that can do a spread attack. The graphics were fun. It was a 2D kind of 16-bit type looking thing. Not 2D, 16-bit type looking game. The bosses seemed to be pretty much like, you shot the hands and then you shot the face. I saw someone get all the way to this ice character who was also the same as like the first guy you meet in the game for a boss. There were secret exits to go through. There was upgrades to find. It was kind of difficult, it was kind of difficult. It reminded me, It reminded me a lot of some of the Game Boy era games where you're just kind of like, moving side to side on the map trying to dodge fire. And, it was almost, I would, is Galaga a good comparison? No. But yeah, it was a fun time. Apparently it won a PAX East Team Choice Award. So that's pretty fun. But anyway, if you want to check that out, Demon Throttle, I believe it's going to be on the Switch. I think that is going to be like a Switch exclusive for the start of it, I believe, is what I heard. The next game we played was called The Last Worker, and this was an interesting one. It kind of had like a Telltale graphic style to it with like the characters and the cell shading. But it was very different from like a Telltale game, obviously. You were playing as this character who was working in like some sort of big giant warehouse where you deliver packages, almost like Amazon, except you're super into the future, and you're riding in this like hover chair or whatever, and essentially you use the chair to pick up items, deliver packages to different areas. But there is some sort of like sinister kind of way to this game. You're the last guy at this place working, and things are starting to go a little bit haywire. You have a little robot companion to help you out at the beginning. It seems like they're setting up a really interesting story with it all. It seems like it's going to be pretty interesting. It seems to be also have a lot of stealth elements to it as well. You do have some sort of like gravity gun too, where you can pick up things and throw them. It was pretty cool. So it also is going to have it's going to have a VR version, which might be the way that I play the game, because you could definitely tell it was set up to be like more of a VR game, but they made it for the other consoles too, probably just to maximize profits, honestly. But yeah, you could like look around in your chair, and there was like a mirror where you could see your guy's face and you could see everything around you. It was kind of cool. So yeah, it seems like it's gonna be a pretty well designed game. Definitely looking forward to this one. The Last Worker. We went back to Thunderful to play Cursed to Golf, which is a game that I've talked about in a couple episodes of Fair 64. It's this 2D pixel art kind of game where you play as a golfer who dies, and you have to golf through, I guess, purgatory or whatever, the afterlife. Essentially you need to get through like these crazy 18 holes of golf to ascend to heaven or whatever. What they set up was really fun. The different ways you could play the game, with your different clubs. You had 3 different clubs: wedge, an iron, and a wood. And then you also had these special abilities, like you could stop time and your ball would drop exactly where it is. There was another ability where you could do like a free shot essentially, and it would reset you. But that was good for like getting extra shots to use. Because the thing is, each hole has a par, just like normal golf, and the par to course 1 was 7 shots. But if you hit these special statues, they would give you extra shots that you could use. So you definitely want to utilize that type of thing. There were plenty of other power-ups to use too. It was very fun getting through that first level, and it seems like it's gonna be it seems like it's gonna be a little bit challenging. It seemed like a little challenging, but yeah, it was fun to play. It was fun to play for sure. I like the soundtrack. I like the design of the Scottish ghost that kind of does a tutorial with you. He was pretty funny. And yeah, the place was called Eternity, like, a golf tee. So that was kind of fun too. Just the little nods they put in there. So yeah, if you want to check that out, Cursed to Golf. I'm pretty sure this also has a demo on Steam. Next, I ran back. Well, I didn't run, but I went back to Devolver Digital, and I really, really wanted to try Trektoyami, which is the new game coming out this next week. I think it comes out May 5th. It is coming to Xbox Game Pass if you want to try it out. This is the 2D sword fighting game where you play as a samurai trying to take back his village. It's in an old Japanese movie style, black and white. The combat was really fun. It was a little bit basic, but it was really fun to master, and it was really a fun game to play. And I will be 100% honest with you guys. From the time that I was waiting at Cult of the Lamb, the time I was waiting for Demon Throttle, the time I was waiting for merchandise for Devolver Digital, to every time that I walked past this game and I watched people play it, to the time that I tried to wait in line on Friday but ended up leaving to go do something else, I never saw anyone get as far as I did. And I'm not trying to say that to be like, everyone else sucks. I'm just saying I feel like I did the best in this game, and I wasn't ready to quit when I died for like the 3rd time. I was like, I want to keep going. I really, really want to keep going and see this through. But there was a line behind me. I didn't want to be, rude, because everyone else who was in front of me was leaving after they died a few times. So, I reset the game, and I was like, yep, I'm definitely playing this as soon as it drops on Xbox Game Pass. And I've already preloaded it. It's definitely one of my favorite games that I played there. Probably second to The Last Hero of Nostalgia. So yeah, it was very fun indeed. I really, really enjoyed this. So I'm definitely gonna be checking that out when it comes out. Also, scroll past these pictures of me and a retro fellow. We played a game called Back to the Dawn. Didn't really jive with this one. It was a 2D pixel. It was a top-down pixel art game where you played as this reporter who was put in jail. He's a fox. This reporter, he's put in jail or prison, and essentially the game is based around you trying to trying to survive prison one and then also trying to escape as well. It was just kind of like it had a little bit of a confusing setup because the same place that you go to do your job in the laundry is also the same place that you go to, the same door that you go to get to the medical wing where you get, your medical certificate. So I was really confused for a while, running around just talking to random people, doing some side quests. And I was like, where the heck is this fucking medical wing so I can get my, workers registration or whatever? And it was just the same door that you had to go through already, which was kind of annoying, a little bit annoying. Wasn't super it wasn't super into this one, but I think a lot of people are going to like it. It has a little bit of like a management system in there. There's a lot of side quests to do, a lot of characters to meet. They were all very fun designed characters. They kind of look kind of the same design as like my ferret avatar, which is kind of cool. But yeah, back to the Dawn. I'm not sure. I think I'm 100% sure it's an indie developer. I'm not sure when it's going to come out or anything like that. I just know that when they were doing the demos for the game, if you were like the first 10 people to do the demo, they would give you free fox ears. I did not get them, but yeah, fun times. All right, the Piece de Resistance, probably the biggest game that I played while I was there, but not the longest wait that I had. It could have been the longest wait I had, but it was not. It was about an hour less than Cult of the Lamb. Evil West. Evil West was one of my favorite games that I played there, and this is the game that's like, they had a little bit of dialogue, but it was mostly just showing off what the game can do, and that is what I like in a game, in a gameplay demo. And this was one of the best demos they had there because they started you in like a basic area. They kind of showed off how to use the weapons and the combo system. You could aim your rifle for precise shots, or if you just pressed the shoot button, you would do like a 6-round shot from your revolver, which was pretty cool. You had like this iron fist or whatever that you would beat enemies up with. The graphics were stellar. The voice acting was pretty good. I think that you fought a boss in there as well, which was kind of interesting. He was immune to bullets until you did enough damage with your fists, and they would be open for an attack. Or he would have these moments right before he attacks that you could utilize to get damage on him. Was a very, very cool and fun demo. Really enjoyed it. It's like a third person, Old West game where it's like all these werewolves and ghouls and vampires and stuff have attacked. So essentially it's a better version of the Order, 1886 or whatever it was called. But apparently a lot of people love that game now, so I shouldn't say anything too terrible about it. But yes, Evil West was one of my favorite things that I played there. Probably more fun. It was more fun than Cult of the Lamb, and I honestly might rank it above the Last Year of Nostalgia, actually. But that being said, it was actually a relatively short demo, all things considered. But the wait for it was crazy long. I mean, we got in line when it was I was like 5 or 6 people away, and it felt like forever to get there. But hey, when I got there, it was definitely worth it, and I had a great time playing it. So we'll see. I don't know when it's going to come out, but I'm very pleased with with the progress the company's had. After that, we ran back over to, I think the developer's called Wired or whatever. They had a game for Gorry. They had a demo for a game called Gorry, Cuddly Carnage. I really enjoyed this. My fiance, on the other hand, did not. But I really enjoyed this game. You played as this cat who crash lands to Earth after, all the humans have died, and there's like this toy company that took over. Essentially, so you crash land, you're a cat, you don't really talk, but your hoverboard talks, and you can use the hoverboard as a weapon. You can slice enemies and stuff like that. It's all about, slicing and dicing and getting combos and stuff like that. So you go through this demo. It's very colorful, very vivid. You're fighting like these unicorns who turn into like these evil, demented toys. They have like swords coming out of their hands. Some of them shoot guns at you. Later on, there was a boss fight with a Jack-in-the-Box, and his face was ripped off to reveal his skeleton underneath. It was really creepy, and he would fight his hands, and they were like stitched together zombie hands. It was really creepy, but also I really enjoyed it. You could like grind on these rails and stuff like that. It was pretty fun. I really enjoyed it. This game would probably snugly fit right below the Last Hero of Nostalgia. I think it was a really fun time. Really had a great time with it. Played the demo all the way through. Wishlisted on Steam. I believe this game also has a demo on Steam right now, but don't quote me on that. I'm going from memory here at this point. But yeah, I felt like it was really good, really fun. Gonna be interesting to see that one when it fully gets released. And then we played a demo for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Shredder's Revenge, which is the new 2D arcade style Turtles beat 'em up. And it was really good. It was really, really good. You could play as any character that you want to. I played as Master Splinter. My fiance played as Donatello. We kicked ass. It was really fun. You had 2 boss fights that you did. You pretty much did 2 levels of the game, pretty much. It was actually really fun. I really enjoyed it. It was very reminiscent of the old school Turtles games, the arcade games, but it had that new game flair to it. It was designed really well. I mean, there was parts where, the Shredder's ninjas would be typing on a computer, and then after you beat the first wave of enemies, they would look at you and jump into the action. There's a lot of cool stuff like that. And that's the stuff that really makes me happy about this new game coming out. Also, after playing this, I pre-ordered the Cowabunga collection. So you could say that their marketing is working. But yeah, it was very fun. Probably goes right below Gorry. Is that Cuddly Carnage? Yeah. Probably goes right below that for games that I liked best. But yeah, that was one of the last games we played, actually. And then the final game... The final game that I played was called Aster Astroghosts, which was a third-person game where you played as this girl who was trying to go through this mythical land. You fought a giant crocodile. You had you had swords. You had a shield. You had magic. You had like a spear, and they gave you a whole bunch of weapons. But in the demo, you couldn't change your weapons. So I was doing pretty good with the sword and shield combo, and then the game switched me to magic and a magic staff, and I just couldn't get into it after that. I was like, holy shit, just give me back my sword and shield. Like, that's how I like to do these things. It was kind of similar to that game that came out last year. Holy shit, it was like the Pixar game. Everyone called it the Pixar game. Fuck, what the hell was that game's name? I can't remember. You know what I'm talking about, the Pixar game. It won like best an indie game last year at the Game Awards, and I was kind of pissed about that. I can't remember the name of it right now. I'll probably remember when I'm listening back to this and be like, you stupid noob. Anyway, I wasn't really into this one, but it seemed like a cool concept. It's a little bit too early in its life to have a demo at this thing. I think that it needed a little bit more time in the oven for the demo, but was kind of interesting. I'll give it that. I don't know. That's all I can say really about it. The last thing that we tried, or I watched someone play, was a game called like Sandrock. My Time in Sandrock. We played like 5 minutes, so I really don't even have any opinion on it. It was kind of cutesy. It was I like the graphics. But it seemed to be like a third-person Minecraft almost, and I'm not a huge fan of that. But yeah, that's everything that I played at PAX. Like I said, I'll talk about more about the different like things we did outside of PAX. I'll talk more about that stuff with a Retro Fellow when he feels better. But yeah, I had a great time, really enjoyable. Can't wait for the next one. I love playing new games. A lot of people go to these things and all they want to do is show off their cosplay or, vlog. I saw a lot of like people who were vlogging and stuff like that. Me personally, I go there for the games and I go there to meet up with friends. And I'm not a huge proponent of like going somewhere and then like having a camera in your face 24/7 and being like, in content creation mode the entire time. I'm just there to play games. That's what I love. That's my favorite thing to do in life. So, it was a great time for me, and it was just a really good time. So, yeah, it was awesome meeting people, and hopefully if you went to PAX, you had a good time as well.